Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Several people sent me this story about a restaurant, a diner, that used servers' tip money to pay its bussers' wages. Now it has to pay $1.35 million as a result. Orlando, Mayor Quinn wrote this for USA Today. A diner in a Philadelphia suburb must return $1.35 million in back wages and damages to more than 100 employees after it used its waiters' tips to pay the wages of the bussers, according to the Department of Labor Wednesday. The Department of Labor, of course, is a federal agency that oversees workplace conditions. And when they get involved, it's often a big case. Now, $1.35 million is a big case, but we're talking about a diner. We're talking about a diner. It's not a chain of restaurants. It's not a gigantic corporation. It's a diner. And yet, for it to be hit for $1.35 million suggests that it got the attention of the feds. Federal Judge Eduardo Rebrano ruled last month that the diner in Lansdowne, Pennsylvania, willfully violated labor laws and ordered it and two defendants, who are the owner and the manager, to pay $675,000 and an equal amount in damages to the affected employees, totaling $1.35 million. So it sounds like some of this might be punitive in nature, meaning give them back their money and give them a little more. But it's not completely spelled out here. But it's $1.35 million going back to the workers. A Labor Department investigation found that the diner violated the minimum wage, overtime, and record-keeping laws. The chief offense was skirting tip credit requirements by using the service staff's tips to pay the wages of bussers, according to the Department of Labor. The department first filed a lawsuit against the restaurant 2018. The restaurant's website indicates that it only operates at a single location. And many people know this, but there are federal laws and state laws on minimum wages, right? Okay. And there are all kinds of exceptions and exemptions to that. And one of them is if you work in an industry with a profession where you can get tips, tipped personnel can be paid less than minimum wage. And the thinking is, well, if you're going to get tips as part of your work, that'll bring you back up over the minimum wage. And I've heard of people who worked at restaurants where they got tipped very, very well. And they said, yeah, it works out. And I know other people who've worked in restaurants where it doesn't work out. But obviously, if they don't let you keep your tips, it won't work out. And the reason you can get away with paying these people below the minimum wage is because they're supposed to get those tips. And so, like I said, I've spoken to a lot of people. I've heard all over the board on this. And it's one of the reasons that I know a lot of people say, Steve, I've had people tell me, I don't tip in restaurants. I pay for the food, I eat my food, I leave. Why should I tip? And I say, well, you understand that the wait staff who are waiting on you, they are getting paid less than minimum wage. And so the tips are how they make that up. And then people say, well, Steve, that's their fault. They shouldn't take such a job. But we know it's the case. That's what's going on. And quite frankly, sometimes jobs can be hard to come by. So if you find a job and you have a job and you're working, my hat's off to you for being a member of the workforce. And so when I go to a restaurant, I tip very well. I actually tip very well. Now, I will admit, if I get lousy service, I don't tip as well. But I tip. I can't remember if in my adult life I've ever not tipped someplace where I actually got service. I've gotten up and walked out of a restaurant because I couldn't get waited on, but that's different. Another story altogether. But the department filed the lawsuit in 2018. The diner required its servers to give 10 to 15% of their tips to the restaurant at the end of their shifts for a tip pool. The servers were paid a cash wage of $2.83 per hour, while the restaurant claimed a tip credit for the difference between the cash wage and the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. But the diner retained some of the tips to pay the wages of the bus staff and not for a valid tip pool, according to court documents. The violations occurred at the restaurant from 2014 through at least 2018, according to documents. The department said the restaurant interfered with an investigation by asking employees to lie about the pay practices. That's also something that'll make you look bad. I'm not sure if I've got to spell that out for you. But when somebody is doing an investigation and they have a legal right to do the investigation. And they're speaking to witnesses and victims. And the witnesses and victims say, oh, by the way, the people you're investigating asked me if I could lie to you. They want me to lie to you about what's going on. It's not good. It's not good. In an email to the newspaper, the diner owner said the diner disagrees with the court and plans to appeal the decisions on several grounds. They plan to appeal. This legal action recovers the workers' hard-earned wages and sends a strong message to other restaurant employers that violations come at a high cost. Solicitor of Labor Simananda said in a press release from the department, the U.S. Department of Labor is prepared to use every tool available, including litigation, to prevent employers from depriving workers of their wages. So, a diner, West Philly, hit with a $1.35 million hit, and they're going to appeal that, they say, so we'll see what happens. And they have every right in the world to appeal it, by the way. And so they can appeal it, we'll see what happens, and we'll go from there. But getting back to the tipping thing, it's funny because quite often, because there's a tipping culture, some waiters and waitresses will actually act differently. And I've mentioned before that I'm not a heavy drinker. I don't drink a lot. I haven't had alcohol in quite a while. I'd have to think for a while to tell you the last drink I had. And I've gone to a bar or restaurant, a high-end place, and placed my order for drinks. And when I say I want an iced tea, I can see the look in the waiter's eyes, or the waitress's eyes, go, oh. Because people who drink, number one, usually have a higher tab, but number two, often tip better if they've had a little bit of alcohol in their system. And so I can actually see sometimes, and I'm dead serious in this, I can see their expression change when I order iced tea. And the point is, I'm a good tipper, but they're going off of the knee-jerk stereotype that someone who doesn't drink doesn't tip well. And a couple of years ago, some of my friends all got together. It was the weekend of Thanksgiving. I think it was Thanksgiving Friday, maybe, day after Thanksgiving. And a friend of ours contacted a bunch of us, the whole group of people who hang out once in a while, and said, hey guys, Thanksgiving Friday, we're all meeting at this one bar. I got us a big table in a corner reserved for just us. We're going to go to this bar and just hang out. And so you might say, Steve, you don't drink. Why do you hang out at the bars? Well, I hang out there because all my friends are there. I can't say let's all go hang out at the diner and not get alcohol. So I said, no, that's cool. I'll be there. So I show up, and they had assigned a waitress to our table. She was our waitress for the night. She comes up to me and she goes, what do you have to drink? I go, iced tea. I could see her countenance drop. Oh, I looked at her and I go, I'm going to tell you something. There's a noise in the bar, but I say to her discreetly, I say, just to let you know, I understand that sometimes non-drinkers don't tip very well. I said, I will guarantee you that I will tip you better than anybody else at this table if you take care of me tonight. She goes, really? I said, yes. She apparently believed me because all night long, she'd come back to the table and ask me first, how are you doing? More iced tea? What do you want? My tip that I gave her that night was larger than my bill, and I was actually paying the bill for two people. So me and my guest had a bill, and I tipped the waitress more than my bill. And yes, we had food, we had dessert, we had a whole shooting match. And I actually asked her, what's the biggest tip you've gotten so far? And she told me. I said, well, I think mine's bigger. I tipped her. Sad part, I've never gone back to that bar since. I guarantee you, she tells stories about this one guy who came in, and his tip was insane. This is the Thanksgiving Friday a couple years ago. And he told me, I don't drink alcohol, but I tip really well. And he did. So, again, I know some people say, no, Steve, I'm gonna do exactly 15% if I get good service. If I get less than good service, I'm gonna give them 10%. If I'm really unhappy, I might give them nothing. That's fine. But understand that they make less than minimum wage. And there's some days they come in and the tips ain't that good and they're wondering why they're even doing it. And I always will say, I will salute anybody who's got a job. I don't care what the job is. There are no jobs out there that aren't jobs you should be proud of if you do your job well. So if you're out by the side of the road digging a ditch, if you're doing the best ditch digging you can do, my hat's off to you if you're being paid for it. And if you're just out randomly digging ditches, I guess I can't really compliment you. But you're being paid to do it, great, do it. And you're a waiter or waitress at a restaurant or bar, do a good job, be proud of it, and I will tip you. So there you go. But the story's out of Philadelphia, USA Today, and Orlando. Mayor Quinn wrote it. A diner using servers' tip money to pay its bussers' wages must now pay $1.35 million as a result, but they say they're going to appeal it. We'll see what happens. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.